Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Average Superstar TV. I am your host, Lauren Lepre. If you want to be a good Samaritan today, please hit that subscribe button. And this week, we are back in the wrestling world, and we got two awesome guests here with a long history here. They got their hands in quite a good history here between these two. But they're here right now, particularly pushing their film that they've been working on for a long time. I think it's a great idea. I think this is a story that definitely needs to be told. But their film Circle of Champions, with focuses on all of the professional female history going back to black and white, the current, it looks like. There's wrestlers in here that we all know. There's a whole lot that I don't know, which I think the audience is going to really like, that especially in the wrestling business here. People that should have gotten their due. This documentary for you. With that, the filmmakers themselves, Angel and Christopher, I'd like to welcome you to Average Superstar TV.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing great. Sweet. So, listen, everybody has an origin story. So, between the two of you, Angel, go first. You're the girl. What even drew you to wrestling?
Thanks so much. Yeah, I've been wrestling for almost 30 years. I'm an original E.C.W wrestler, and I was I was a bodybuilder, and then I was a professional mixed martial arts fighter, and then I became a pro wrestler.
So, okay, back up. Were you doing the MMA thing before Eastern Championship Wrestling? Okay, so you just converted. All right.
Yes, I was into martial arts. I was a black belt. I was teaching Taekwondo, competing Olympic-style Taekwondo. And then I got the opportunity to train with Bart Vale, who was a part of the Fujiwara Gumi in Japan, trained by old man Malenko out of the Malenko, Florida dojo. And then he started this thing called shoot fighting, which was MMA. And then I got trained and I went to Japan. And while I was in Japan, I saw the women do strong style pro wrestling. And I was like, bing! Little hearts coming, in the sky all around me. And I was like, I want to learn that. So I found Liz Chase when I came back to Florida from Japan, started training with her. Last 6 weeks of training was with Joni Lee before she got hired with WWE. And she was my first ever match at the Biketoberfest in Ormond Beach, Florida. And then my next matches were with Luna Vachon. Liz Chase was the woman who trained me, and she was trained by Leilani Kai, Judy Martin, Joyce Grable, and she was amazing. She had a great career in Japan. She also toured and was hired by Vince Sr. for the WWF, and she worked a lot with Wendy Richter.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got a question you probably not asked a lot of this particular one. So you and I have a somewhat similar path. So I was like a wrestling manager, but I was always seen to be thrown into matches here and there. And then I started converting more towards the MMA, but I really never left the smoker level. Here's an odd question, because the audience hearing this would be like, well, it's obvious it's going to be the MMA, but I realize that MMA, you get a shot to the face through a fist or the high kick or whatever. No one wants that, but the training itself, did you find I almost found the MMA training easier on my body to recover because I could have control when compared to wrestling with someone does a flying cross body and there goes my back. Like, because, you know what I mean? It's a dance. It's a stunt show. Did you find yourself in better, not as hurt more in MMA, or you're the complete opposite?
Well, I would say I had a lot of tendonitis. I had really bad shin splints when I was doing MMA because my style was Muay Thai, and then it was really I was trained in Gotchism, so is basically blocking jujitsu. And when I was on the ground wrestling, I would create offense out of defense.
Okay.
So all that pushing and leveraging, I used to get really bad tendonitis in my wrists and all the way into my shoulder, and my shin splints from them Muay Thai.
Yeah. I don't miss that.
Yeah, and there were times when the meat was coming off the bone. It was so bad I couldn't even tie my shoelaces,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
But at
but
the other end, one wrong move in a wrestling match between the two of you is misfire. You could blow your back out or your knee, and there goes like 2 months of your life. So
I think the worst things are when you fall wrong and you get like a stinger.
yeah,
You get like your shoulder or your hip out of the socket because you land a little too much on one side first, then the other.
yeah,
Oh, that is like a nagging injury that just, it's like a toothache for 6 weeks in your shoulder. It's annoying.
gotcha. We'll get back to you in a second. Chris, what's your origin into wrestling?
Ooh, God. Well, it's a bit. So, when I grew up, I was diagnosed with a lot of neurological impairments, disabilities, some would say, and I had was diagnosed with Asperger's. So when I was born, the left side of my body, if sometimes, like we've seen each other face to face, sometimes it looks like I'm like glaring at somebody, but it's actually one eye is more dominant than the other.
Understood.
Trying to kind of focus. So sometimes people think I'm angry. So that's, but what happened was when I was young, I got into weightlifting, and I wasn't so quick, I wasn't agile as a kid, but so I got into weightlifting, judo, track and field, and oddly enough, I started to kind of grow into, the with the strength training, it was able to even out both sides of me, and so I was able to do that. So I competed in the AAU. I went to junior Olympic qualifier for weightlifting, and I also competed in track and field. And I went to the NCAA. And again, people said, I had learning disabilities as well, and so everyone told me I couldn't make it to college. So I graduated Mitchell College in New London, Connecticut. Played some NCAA ball. And from then on, I was able to graduate the fire academy, became a professional firefighter. Within that span, though, I was dabbling in film here and there. I got my start in a film called Mystic Pizza. I was 5 years old, and I was in this film called Mystic Pizza with Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts. Yeah, I know exactly.
That was shot down the street, and
Ah.
the place was called Ted's Pizza. And the place where they're just letting everyone know, I'm sorry to say this, but the place where everyone takes photos in Mystic Pizza, downtown Mystic, that used to be a laundromat. So it wasn't shot there. But anyway, I just kept trying and trying to learn new things. And I bumped into a gentleman named Biju Viswanath. And with his guidance, I was able to learn film. So even though I was injured, I just kept shooting films or learning how to shoot films. And that's what kept me going. So when I met Angel, interesting thing was I met her through Evan Ginsberg, who was a producer for The Wrestler and 350 Days. A phenomenal influencer in the wrestling community, a great teacher, a great human being. And if it wasn't for him, a lot of the stuff that we're doing now wouldn't be happening. So I met her, and, I felt like I've had unfinished business in regards to wrestling. So weirdly enough, it was serendipitous in a way, because when we met at this premiere for 350 Days, we instantly clicked, and she instantly trusted me. We didn't know each other from Adam. I knew a little bit about her because I would watch her as a kid, but it was a blessing to have her because it gave me hope to do this one more time. And the one thing I was retaught with her and Gary Wolf is that this wrestling is a privilege. We're doing it in a way, it's a privilege. It's a gift that's given to us. Same with acting. If you get casted for a film, that's a gift. It's a wonderful gift. Not many people get to do that. So this time around, I have a lot of appreciation for it. I mean, I always did, but because I didn't have it at one point, I couldn't do it. I try to make this run at least last. So we've now tagged as the Dogs of War. We're also working with Gary Wolf as the Pitbulls.
So you're an actual mixed tag team.
We're a mixed
Yes.
tag, yep. And also going to be wrestling
Which is obviously is not something very common. That's awesome.
No, actually, it's not common for me. My career has mostly been women's wrestling. I'm always all about going for title belts. I think I'm up to 17 or 18 in my career. And I've also done a lot of intergender wrestling. That's how I got into E.C.W. I was hardcore champion in a couple places down in southeastern USA at the very end of E.C.W. as the Prodigette. So I was there. I started campaigning to get a job in '98. And I would train with them a lot whenever they would come into town, Tampa, South Florida.
Yeah.
But that's how I met Lita. And then I went on a few shows with Lita, and then we did a tour down in Peru together. That was really cool. And then she got hired. So I was like rallying for a position after she left.
Yeah.
And that's how I got in, was showing them video of a hardcore match I did with the dudes where I went through table. And so eventually, after I made my debut in E.C.W., I went through Flamin' Table on hardcore TV.
What was your initial thoughts when you met Paul Heyman?
I mean, I already knew E.C.W. I was not wrestling, but when I first saw Eastern Championship Wrestling and those segments of it, I thought it was great. I thought it was innovative, very genius. And then I started watching hardcore TV, and I thought, this is great. This is just brilliant. I was like, if I'm going to be on TV for a show, I want to be on this show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, just to add, I met Paul a few times. I really think he was an innovative genius in regards to creative. Obviously, maybe booking, he wasn't the best in regards to business, but he actually, I give him a lot of props because he changed wrestling as we know it to what
By
it is.
far, and Vince McMahon borrowed a format from him to crush the other one that was beating him for a while.
Yeah,
without a doubt. No,
yeah.
It's a shame the way it all worked out. He should have kept it strong. I mean, imagine. I just think as a business person, because that's what I go to school for. That's what I'm involved in every day of my life is business. I just think, listen, if I have 4 products and I can sell 4 products and I can keep all 4 products strong and healthy, and every once in a while change it up a little bit, but I have 4 streams of income.
Yep.
Why wouldn't I want that? Why would I want to take one and smash it and kill it and make 3?
It's like Paul Heyman.
Not smart.
The best comparison to Paul Heyman is,
But that's not Paul's decision, though. That's Vince's.
Right.
Sorry. I just want to be clear.
Right. Paul Heyman was kind of like the Bill Parcells of like wrestling promoters. Okay. Without Bill Parcells, you'd never have a Coach Belichick.
Yep.
Okay. Because Belichick was under Parcells. So what Heyman did was he set the pace to control the race almost. And I guess that's the best way to kind of paint that picture. He really, without Parcells, there wouldn't be a Bill Belichick. There wouldn't be obviously a Patriots dynasty and whichever else. So
yeah.
It's funny because it's like those are like sacred letters to the fans. Like it's just it was. I'm glad I was like a little. I have a small hand in that, but behind the scenes and stuff. But it was amazing. And actually, Angel, I thought that last year, wrestling wise, I was loving when people say ECW, they just immediately think of like, well, the main history of Sabu and Taz, and you could go all the way back to Shane Douglas. But I thought that last year particularly, I liked how it was gelling. I thought, and I liked what I was starting to see out of people like you and Tom Marquez. And I liked a lot that when you say the end of ECW, I think of the tag teams, like the 7 tag teams that were just on fire with like Mikey and Tajiri. Then over here, you got the FBI and you got the Baldies over here. It was just like, wow, this stuff is the whole thing is just gelling so good. And, and then the plug gets pulled and you're like, oh man, like I just think that last year is very, very underrated. When people, so I'm glad you were a part of that and you got to,
front row center stage because I was with Simon Diamond and Johnny Swinger.
Yeah, there was another tag team, and then with E.C.W and all that. Yeah, so that was like I just dug that. I like the way it was going, and some people are like, oh, he's getting away from hardcore. I'm like, well, things change, and I'm sure it's never gonna go away.
Well, it's like what Bam Bam said, like in the shoot interview. He's surprised no one died.
Well, I mean, the more I look back on that now, I feel me from a fan, not just ECW, but everywhere, particularly ECW, where I want to see balls hit that guy with that chair. And like now that I'm older, I'm like, oh shit. I kind of rooted for someone to be severely hurt for what, like claps, people don't realize the wrestlers got to go home. Football players, the hockey players, they got to go home and wrap those knees and do so many things that, to get by. And particularly in ECW, if you're one of the particular ones like that were purely hardcore, you're going to do this Thursday and then wake up the next day and do it Friday and then Saturday. And you can't, oh God, like how did you move? Because I've been in horrible situations where like the next day you're like, F the world, I ain't getting up today. I'm taking the phone off oh shit, it's my job to go wrestle. No, I can't do that. Like, wow.
No, I mean, I have a certain flexibility that I came into this business with because my whole life has been competing in sports since I was a little girl. I started competing in gymnastics when I was 7. I was running track and field when I was in 8, 9.
Grew up on a farm too.
I grew up on a farm. So stretching was something I did every day, and I practiced gymnastics every single day. So that was, a discipline that I didn't even need to think about to do. It's just like an automatic thing. And that's why it was easy for me to step into bodybuilding and do really well because I already had a base. I already, had a routine that I could fall from, things like, grace and poise. And those are things that you need in pro wrestling. Now, being in front of a crowd, sometimes that gets everybody really stiff because the adrenaline kicks in. And a lot of people have a hard time controlling that. But I've been competing in front of people since I was a little girl. So a lot of people being there or not being there, I just had a certain way of being able to mute that. And I'm able to relax. And I think that's what the key is to not getting injured. Being relaxed and having a lot of flexibility. And if you don't have that, and I think it's harder, especially back then for the guys to kind of have a routine like that, because I don't think that they really taught it in wrestling schools back then in the 80s and the 90s. It just wasn't like yoga.
I don't know if they had if anyone had a true program back then, of like what to do, like compared to like a football player, like give them the ice bath immediately right after they get, after the game, or there's so many things you could do now because we're a lot more health conscious. But the trainers of all those schools kind of what did they tell you when you went home? A couple of quick tips and that's it. See you the next day, right? you were kind of fed for yourself, right?
Tiger Bomb ice, and don't whine.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when I broke into the fire department. It's very similar. Back then, first off, they didn't tell you anything about PTSD. They had no idea what that was. They didn't really get into that. Secondly, like the one thing that she said that's actually what we were taught. Like say we're going to go through a small area, right? Well, when you're in that situation, your adrenaline's going. So the trick to go through like a little hole or something, you had to like literally take your oxygen off, your tank off, and you can't think like you're going to be in danger. You have to just kind of loosen up and go through. So it's similar. Like you can't, if you tense up, you're going to also expend energy, and you're going to cramp up too. You'll get more injured. So, but back then too, like you have to keep in mind, the wrestler looked a lot different then. Nowadays they're thin and tiny, or smaller, more lean, which is okay. But it was also, you had big guys smashing into each other constantly. So, it was.
And I would say that this training was not standardized, and that there was a lot of differences back then in what people would call things. It really was like regional. A top wrist lock was a different move in different places.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, so it's good that we're at this place where we are now, because I think now it's more uniform. It makes it easier for people to have good timing and, read each other well.
Yeah.
And I think now the way things are, you're less prone to getting injured.
Good. What about so let's jump into both of your bread and butter right now. It's a film you've been working on for quite some time. So tell everyone about the Circle of Champions.
So I started filming this in about 15 years ago.
Oof, yeah.
More with like I began it originally with a lot of Moolah's trainees. Your Diane von Hoffman's, your Princess Victoria's, Wendy Richter's, stuff like that. And then I decided that it needed to be bigger. Now, Susan Tex Green, who trained me, but also something that not many people know, is she beat Moolah in a real shoot match that was not scheduled and took her belt. Beat her in front of everyone because of how she was being treated. That's what helped fuel this concept and story, because we only hear what a certain promotion says that happened. We're not hearing it from everyone's perspective, from different territories, especially back then. So everyone kept bugging me about, you got to finish it, you got to finish it, you got to finish it. And they still bug me about it now. But as more and more I kept shooting and shooting and shooting, I realized that in order to be a good documentary, I'm not obviously you want to have a great documentary, you have to have just different layers. Sometimes it just takes a while. And I then realized that there's various wrestlers, female wrestlers, that are not getting honored by the WWE Hall of Fame, which is the big, that's like your baseball Hall of Fame. That's your final championship you get, your honor you get. And then I realized that, well, that's unfair, and we're partial to everyone. So we then realized that in order for them to be justified, just getting an award means something to them. So again, I was going to originally release the film last year, and then I'm like, no, let's wait another 2 years or something. But let's establish the Women's Wrestling Hall of Fame first to justify their careers.
Yeah.
And at first, a lot of people were against me for doing that. But then they realized that, like our first induction, and we're doing it in installments, because I realized that, okay, there's different eras here. You have the pre-radio era, which was the carnival circuit, the burlesque circuit, the vaudeville circuit. You have the radio era. Okay, then you have the the TV era, modern TV era, and then you have the internet era, which is kind of what we're in right now. So that's how I layered it. Our first inaugural induction is this year, which is Cora Livingston, who was the first female wrestling champion ever. She won it in, like, I think the 1920s. Correct me if I'm wrong. And this is way before your Mildred Burks. Of course, we're acknowledging Mildred Burke as well. And then we move a little bit forward to, like,
you're already back in 1920 to jump in here really quick. So
yeah.
I don't know. I can tell you right now, I don't know the last couple, particularly her, who you just named. But to me, I'm already, as a person that's loved wrestling his entire life, like, and I imagine any fan watching this right now, how could you not be drawn to seeing this movie already? Because you're gonna learn something.
Absolutely, because that's the biggest thing. There's more of preservation of their history.
Yes.
Because any book that's out there right now, they're going to mention, and it's nothing against WWE. We have nothing against.
It's the law of their book of how they wrote it.
Right. They'll talk about their champions, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, look, without WWE, wrestling wouldn't be what it is now.
No, it's not.
To them. And we acknowledge a lot of their stars. Like, for instance, the one that we were trying to push the most, which we did induct in at the E.C.W arena.
Yeah.
Jazz.
Yes.
She's never gotten the acknowledgement she deserved. She's probably the best female wrestler that ever stepped foot in the ring. And then on top of that, she's probably one of the best wrestlers ever. She went against Jason Knight, who's a dear friend of ours, and he's going to be part of our stable with the Pitbulls. We'll talk about that later, but, like, she had a match with him, and if you look it up, it's one of the greatest matches I've ever seen.
I saw it. I was there.
You were there?
It's E.C.W arena.
Yes.
I was there.
Well, you know,
Jason was on this show and explained it. I let him have the floor, but it was all coming back to me as he was explaining the match. I remember.
What a great match. And
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been great without the both of them obviously working together. So
Yeah.
they're great wrestlers. But Jazz really, table to pull that off. Holy God, man.
Yep.
So, and what a good person. She's never done anything wrong to anyone. WWE, if you're watching, please consider her for your Hall of Fame. She deserves to be in. So that was one justification we wanted. Okay. Susan Tex Green. Of course, they've had a good relationship and rapport, but still, she's not been acknowledged fully on their websites or anything like that, merch, anything like that. So we inducted her, and we're inducting in Tony Rose and Donna Christiantello, probably one of the greatest female tag teams of all time. Okay. And next year we're going to be inducting in more. Okay. So right there, it's going to help preserve. Obviously, some of that footage is going to be in the documentary, but, like, Cora Livingston, first female champion ever. Okay. No one knew that. I didn't know that until I spoke to Tom Burke, pro wrestling historian, and obviously Evan Ginsberg, who's another pro wrestling historian. I have John Cena Sr., John Cena's dad, in this. Sheldon Goldberg, he's in this. I have a lot of notable.
Does this documentary at all go into, because I know it's a whole different department, but it's related, but do you go into female valets too, or is it you're trying to stick with that?
That's part of wrestling. I have the Nitro Girls.
Yeah, like Eula in there, and Francine.
Yeah, we got Francine. Yep, she's in it.
Yeah.
Little bit, not a lot, but, like, we talked a little bit about with her about it. We want to get more. I think at Richie's thing she's going to be there, so we might get a little bit more. But Camille, the current NWA Women's Champion, we have her.
She's Wrestler of the Year.
Yeah, and Missy Hyatt.
Very good. Yeah,
Missy Hyatt's in it too, and Missy Hyatt really was groundbreaking for female broadcasters, because honestly, the play-by-play that she does is excellent. I've never seen anyone like that, and she's so in tune with the business. Great vocabulary, everything. So Missy Hyatt's definitely going to be in it. It would be nice to have. I think it was Precious from World Class Championship Wrestling. That'd be nice. We're still trying to find her.
Did you track down Baby Doll at all?
We've spoken to her briefly here and there. It's more passing by, but a lot of these interviews we get at the
at the conventions where they're all present. Yeah.
bother her. But we do have her daughter. Her
Okay.
daughter have her daughter's first match in this.
Okay. Awesome.
He's now in NWA, and we have Rock and Robin.
Okay.
And we have and actually we have Rock and Robin talking about Michaela, who is a great wrestler. But the biggest thing is, it's like all the male wrestlers were very big fans of the female wrestlers, especially people like Joyce Grable or Judy Martin, Susan Tex Green. Susan Tex Green trained Leilani Kai. Leilani Kai is another great. So they don't get the acknowledgement they deserve, and that's all we're trying to do is preserve that history for them.
I'm hoping you're doing a good tribute to Sherry Martel for this thing, right?
We are, and we're trying to. We're actually trying to find her son.
Yeah.
We'd like to have him be involved.
When you say the female wrestler, it's immediate her, because I think she was in my. I know you could say always go to Beulah. Moolah, because for how long her reign was, but I just thought Sherry was between being the wrestler, the manager. I mean, she helped make that whole Randy Savage Elizabeth thing. I mean, she could talk. She took bumps like, wow. She would get flatlined by some of the guy wrestlers and get right up. I was like, wow.
You forget to mention, you neglect to mention AWA. In AWA, she was on fire. She'd go against Medusa, who we inducted in, and she was very kind.
And Luna, too.
Yeah, Luna and Medusa. Medusa was very kind and put us over. It was a very nice gesture of her, obviously, to acknowledge us. We have a couple more inductions we're doing throughout the year, and that's also going to go in the documentary. We also spoke to Greg Oliver. He's, I think, associate producer of a film on Luna, and we're also trying to work with them, because we'd like them to have a push first before us.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to work as a collaboration. Like,
good. I think that's great.
Yeah, Chris Bournet, he directed Lady Wrestler. Now, at one point, I was literally on the fence of like, I can't finish this documentary without Chris's influence. Chris Bournet's influence, the director of Lady Wrestler, there would be no film. He's actually the president of the Women's Wrestling Hall of Fame right now. And we are going to be acknowledging 3 very important wrestlers, Marva Scott, Babs Wingo, and Ethel Johnson, the first African-American female wrestlers ever. And they're all sisters in Ohio.
Marvelous. What question about that Hall of Fame? Is that a physical location?
We don't want it to be a physical location because we want it so it can travel, so we can acknowledge them everywhere. So we also have and eventually we'd like to take this documentary but turn it into a series, so you could use it as a reference. It would be nice to have a physical location, and at one point we were going to work a deal with the Hall of Fame in Albany. However, it's just scheduling and stuff like that. We are going to be doing an induction there for Rita Marie, who was the first WWF referee. And we'd like to consider, they were talking about giving us a wall there for stuff, but again, we're still new. So we're still trying to figure out.
Yeah, I think it's great what you're trying to do. And I think getting the movie out might be the key to everything we're talking about here. That it might spark the fans to maybe come together and actually get you a physical location. But one step at a time, get the film out there.
Yeah, we got to finish the film. And then, we really want to just focus on the online Hall of Fame, and finishing the film. And we're also working on the New England Music Hall of Fame and doing events through there. And, we have such a passion for music because music is the soundtrack to our lives.
By far. It's your best friend. I always tell everyone, no matter what walk of life you are, no matter how many people you know, your family, your spouse, music's your best friend no matter what.
And it brings people together, and and we're working with a lot of great, good people like Tim Roth from Twins Arcade. They're helping us. There's a lot of good help coming toward us. we're very fortunate. And again, we went. I mean, anyone who wants to shoot a film out there, like, just don't give up. Just keep going. It's so easy to just give up because there's such, especially if you're an independent filmmaker, there's so much stuff against you. Some people may just not like you. Well, because why? Because they're not doing it, and it has nothing against them. It's just they don't want you to win. They don't want you to move forward. But it's not even about winning. It's just finishing.
Yeah, let me jump in right here, Chris, because I know when we talked that Monster Mania and stuff, I know I was kind of going. You were like, "Damn, this is good. This is good. That's good. All good info." But I have a very big thing about my name, as far as I don't really care overall if I'm not going to be liked by someone. That is something I just learned early in my life. Like, you can try to do anything to please people. People are going to think what they want about you. However, what you're talking about, starting a film, and some people may be trying to block. The second I commit to something, the second I speak it, and it's public. Now, for me, what lies in here, I have to make that come to life.
Yeah.
Nothing. It has to come out, because I will never give the enemy ammo to be like, "Hey, remember you talked about that project," and you fade away. And most of all, I know you're going to get your film out, but the second you start interviewing people for your film, now you're on the hook because people gave you your time to you. So you have to finish it. So coming from a guy who made the Pennsylvania hardcore documentary, where I documented from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia, Scranton, and in between, I interviewed 200 people telling a scene of 30 years. I interviewed 200 people, and I was like relentless. I mean, a lot of these people I knew, but like Tuesday, 6 o'clock, come. Let me get your interview in. Tuesday, like 2 hours for it. I can't do it today. How about tomorrow? When's your next window? Like, I'd be right there. I was like the cat at the back porch that you fed once. And like the second you come out, you got to kind of like, come on, cat, get out of here. Like, I was so driven to get interviews like that. But it was also for my name, but also too of like, I want the best film possible. And I'm going to, so you want to get everybody in there. And then you also kind of want to get done. So what I did is I did 5 months of interviews and then 5 months of an edit. It was the fastest film I ever put together compared to when I came up with The Dark Military. Was like years of editing. I got it out, but the reason that didn't come out fast enough because I kept stopping to do my film festivals.
Right.
I had to completely stop. There's no way I could do both at the same time.
You can't. It's so hard, man. Like, and the other thing is going back to what you just expressed, right? Like, some people, and it's, what you're going to do, okay? You know what you're going to do, and you know what you're working on. The outside people who are kind of just looking in, and it's nothing against them, but they're quick to judge because they're like, well, when's it out? It's not just cut and paste. It's like layer. This may not work. The best motivator that I've also had, I guess, give more praise, is Evan Ginsberg. Evan Ginsberg, he went through. I mean, it took them 10 years to shoot The Wrestler to get it done the right way. Mm-hmm. It's just those things, and it helps to have positive people in your life, like Angel.
It helps also, but brother, in a way, you're the spine. This is your film. This is you got to be the backbone, because when I'm being a guy who's been in the Pennsylvania hardcore scene 30 years now, trust me, the second I came out and started doing this, here came the politickers of like, we don't like these bands. I don't like this person. Don't put them in your movie. And I'm like, I'm Mr. Neutral. Do not be any of that whatsoever. Yeah. I am putting in everyone who I think needs to be telling the story. I am not getting, in my luck, you'll be friends in 9 months from now. And then like that person's out, like, no. So I bet you've already kind of somewhat went through something like this of, I hate her, make sure she's not in.
Yeah, we're faced with that, not just with the film, but with the Wrestling Hall of Fame and the New England Music Hall of Fame. Everybody, once you start to put out there that you want to honor this person or that one,
they get mad, and then, or it's just
everybody's done a human error at one point in their life. Like, yeah, we all have.
This is what I've noticed too, and I'm glad people get passionate behind it. Before, when I was younger, I just couldn't take it. because I would see what people would write about me or the film or whatever else. But then I realized that, well, at least they're passionate enough to say something. But that being said, those same people that say things, and maybe one of them's watching,
or two.
yeah, I'm still going to be around and shooting this thing. Sorry. I mean, it's almost like they're not happy unless you're dead or something. And that's the thing that I've noticed with it. But they are passionate, which is great. and I appreciate the passion, but I always ask, like, well, why are you saying so many bad things? Is it bad? No, it sucks. Okay, well, why does it suck? You and I had this discussion once, I think, when we were at the thing. So, well, why does it suck? Can you please tell me why it sucks? Well, because it just sucks. Well, you're not giving me
You're not giving me any,
yeah. So I was like,
you just want to be the spoiler.
Yeah. But I'm saying this for a reason, because there's a lot of young filmmakers out there that they're trying, and then somebody goes to them and says, maybe they have a little more influence, and maybe they're older.
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't do that, kid. You should work at Gimbals or whatever the heck else, and this sucks, and this project is bullshit. Well, if the guys from Clerks did that, there would never be Clerks. Was it the best shot film?
No.
But it was interesting. It was very interesting, and they did it. I mean, the biggest accomplishment was they were able to do it.
Yep.
An Oscar is a wonderful thing.
And honestly, that if you know the full Clerk story, it was blind luck that their film was screening in New York City.
Yeah.
Only one person watching, but that was the person that was going to change their lives forever. If that person skipped that festival, Clerks would have just been another film that possibly, but most likely, was to say, would fall at the Bayside.
Right, and that's the other thing that younger filmmakers or people who are starting, they have to understand is you don't know who's watching and you don't know who's listening. So,
and I have another one like that, and you don't realize you might be bigger than you really are. There might be eyes on you. They just have yet to speak to you. Angel, Chris, floor is yours. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. Is there anything you need to say or plug? Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great for people to connect with us, because we're we're making progress all the time. And if you don't want to miss something, then stay connected through our websites, through our social media, and you'll stay informed. We're very active. My website is angelorsini.net, and all of my social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, are all the Angel Orsini. And I'm actively wrestling. I'm doing signings May 20th, right? That's in Middletown, New Jersey. What Good Time?
Guaranteed Wrestling. Good Times Guaranteed. It's Richie Sorrentino's promotion.
Yes.
And we're all going to be there. Actually, me, Gary, Angel, Jason Knight. And again, what we're trying to do is what Gary's doing on his end, they're going to unite the pit bulls. So for one last hurrah, Jason's going to be part of it. We're now officially pit bulls, pit bull number 3, pit bull number 4. And on the side, her and I are also wrestling as the Dogs of War and being managed by Broadway Joe Malcolm, who was a Mid-South guy, NWA guy, trained by the great Malenko. And so we have that faction as well. So
right. And for people who want to support the Women's Wrestling Hall of Fame, go to the Women's Wrestling Hall of Fame.com. And the GoFundMe page is right there, right? Absolutely. On there. And then you can see all the other people who are going to be getting inducted in, and also people who are getting nominated for next year already. And we're starting to give them their certificates that they've been nominated. So it's a lot going on. Just stay tuned, stay plugged in. And we're going to have more stuff to talk about soon as well. Wrestling and not just film stuff. The New England Music Hall of Fame. Yeah. So
awesome. Well, Chris and Angel, I'll definitely get you back on the show, especially with that what you just talked about, what you have coming up. So we'll definitely get you back on. I thank you so much for taking the time to be on Average Superstar TV. I thank this audience for taking the time, for always supporting. Please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the show. And with that, as I end every show with, the party is over.